This is it, your final opportunity to join the Six Pillars at Sea Marriage Getaway. In April 2025, we're setting sail for our last ever marriage getaway, and we want you there to experience the unforgettable journey to the extraordinary marriage you desire. Don't wait. Spots are extremely limited and they're filling fast. Get all the details now at oneextraordinarymarriage.com/getaway and reserve your place before it's gone.
From Naples, Florida, this is a One Extraordinary Marriage show where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DeLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're diving into the impact that the holiday season can have on your marriage, especially when it comes to your physical intimacy. And just as a reminder, these are your non-sexual ways to connect with your spouse.
Yeah, as we jump into today's show, I want you to listen to this quote from Dianne Ackerman, who says, "In the absence of touching and being touched, people of all ages can be sickened and grow touch-starved." And it really hit me when I saw that phrase, touch-starved, and we're going to talk about that a little bit in today's episode, because that's a phrase that I've used with coaching clients. We've talked about it on the podcast over the last 14 and a half, almost 15 years now. And so seeing it in print, I was like, oh, we need to really land on that. But we start every One Extraordinary Marriage episode with a hug, and a hug comes from, or allows us to really speak into what you all are doing and to be able to share your transformation, your breakthroughs with those in the one family. And this hug comes from a direct message that we received on Instagram that starts with, "God bless you both for your ministry. My husband and I have been married for 19 years and we were separated for 7 years. I stood in the gap as God had called me to do so, to pray and fast for him to restore our marriage. And he did about 2 years ago. However, we didn't have intimacy for the first 2 years. He came home and God has begun to restore that love and intimacy within us in such a beautiful way. We have been working on our intimacy the last 2 to 3 months, and it's been much better than when we were first married because God is now at our center. I thank the two of you for what you do and encouraging us that sex and marriage is not a bad thing. It's actually what God created. May God continue to bless your marriage and family."
Wow. That's a big one, right? Like, so many of us will, oh man, my marriage this, my marriage that. And I don't say that lightly. Like, we all have our different things that we're going through and our issues and the cracks in our pillars that we are addressing. And yet when I hear a hug like this where, we've been separated for 7 years, that's a whole nother level. To me. That's a whole nother level of willing to stay in that gap, to step in, to go, you know what? I'm believing for this. I know we can make this work. And so I hope for those of you who are maybe having some struggles, have some cracks in your pillars, but you're still living in the same house, there's a lot you can be doing. There's a lot that can happen and shift and change. And for this couple and for any of you who are struggling right now, know that Elisa and I are pressing in for you, praying for you, and believing that you will have your extraordinary marriage.
Absolutely. And, as Tony said at the top of this episode, we're talking about the impact that the holiday season can have on your marriage, especially when it comes to your physical intimacy. And, you can't go anywhere right now without seeing, there's not a whole lot of turkey Thanksgiving stuff. It's mostly, It's been Christmas. It's been Christmas and
Halloween hits. Here in Florida.
And we said that last week, right?
Yeah,
like
Halloween hits, and it's like, it is Christmas. We were just down on Fifth Ave just last Sunday, going for a walk on Fifth Ave. It's sort of the nice street, where you got all the shops and the dining and all this, and it's a great place. And so Lisa and I went down there, and literally the storefronts.
Oh my gosh, the Christmas storefronts
blasted with Christmas stuff. which is vastly different than California, and I love it.
Or maybe we just never, like, I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, is it not happening in other places? Is it just, I have no idea, because I feel like the stores across the country have been showing Christmas stuff since, I don't know, August or September. But, one of the things that we are really focusing on this fall winter season is, looking at what are the impacts that this holiday season can have on different pillars of the 6 pillars of intimacy, and doing so in such a way that the two of you can really take a proactive approach and say, okay, is this a pillar that we need to work on? Is this something that's happening in our marriage? Is this something that, maybe it's not like a full-fledged crack, but it's a little, like, we can see the makings of disconnection happening. And I will say, with all the things that you have to do in November and December, I mean, think about it. You've got the parties, the gatherings, the food, the gifts, the cookies, the concerts, the recitals, the plays, the lights, the caroling, the family time, Christmas movies, on and on and on and on and on. You can easily get to a place where, something's got to give. Something's got to give. Like, I only have so much time. What am I going to do with my time? And I think it's something that Tony and I have experienced over the years, and we hear about it from a lot of you, that in this window, when there's all of that other stuff going on, your physical intimacy can take a backseat. You can develop cracks in this pillar because you're so busy being connected with everybody else that you're not necessarily connected and touching, specifically the non-sexual touches, which is what physical intimacy is, your spouse. Right? Like think about it. You're helping your kids get dressed, and you're giving hugs to friends and family at the Christmas party, or, at the Thanksgiving dinner. You're spending all of this touch energy, if we can, think about it like that, giving to all of the other people because you're seeing them. Maybe you only see them once a year and that kind of thing. But then you get to back home and you're exhausted and you're stressed and you might be a little frazzled. And then your spouse is like, hey, maybe not so, hey, but what about me?
It's interesting you say that, because as you were saying all that and all the different things that are happening, I can remember so many instances in our marriage over the years where this has happened, where it's, we're running from this place to that place. We're doing this show. We're going this thing. We're, and we're seeing people, and we're in, and like you said, there is that, the hugs, the handshakes, whatever it is. And then we get home and we literally plop on different sides of the couch, or even the drive home, or maybe it's just a walk down the street or something. And maybe we're holding hands or something, but you can tell it's just sort of like we're holding hands because we're married and we've been doing this forever. There's no, the actual connection has been lost because of the busyness, the frazzle, even just being exhausted. And it's almost like we're holding hands to hold each other up. and yet I would say there have been times when I feel like we have given each other that physical intimacy, and yet it's only sort of been there because we're there. Like, right. We really aren't creating that closeness and connection.
Right. It's actually just touch. It's not connection.
That's it. Yes.
And I think that
that's a big distinction.
And I think that's something to think about. Like, are you simply just touching each other, kind of like to check the box, to be like, yeah, I gave you a kiss today. I gave you a hug today. Loved on you. Or are you stepping into a place of, hey, I want to connect with you this way? And it was interesting because Tony and I will, before we get ready to record an episode, we're just kind of talking about it. And, we talk about what we're going to share with each and every one of you. And this episode, very in particular, I was like, it's not like we've had, Christmas seasons where it's like, wow, November came and all touch stopped on November 1st. And then, we didn't do anything for 60 days. That's not what we're talking about. In many marriages, it's not like this big, like everything comes to a grinding halt. It's more things slowly start to drift. It is the slow drift. It's the, oh, honey, I can't do that right now. Like, I can't sit on the couch with you right now because like I've got to go do this, or I can't,
do this. It's like, it's the cookies. Look at, and I've been here before, and I know this. As soon as you said that, it hit me. Because here's what it is for me. we get time off, Thanksgiving break, whatever it may be, Christmas time. We get some time. We get to chill. We get to relax. And for me personally, it's football. Like let's watch some football. Let's sit down. And I can remember many a years where it's like, at least like, well, I can't. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I'm just like, honey, I'm not asking you for hours here. I'm just saying, sit down for 5 minutes. I get it. Put the cookies in the oven. Put the timer on. Sit. Relax. Turn your brain off. And just enjoy these moments we have. And I know many of us are different in different ways. And I'm not saying it's only the wives whose brains don't turn off. There have been many a years where mine doesn't either. And Elisa can probably point those out. What I am saying is that we've been there ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think what we're doing this year is we're being proactive, and hopefully you will as well, to be thinking about it now. Like, how are we going to have that connection around our physical intimacy with the busyness and all that's going to come? And I will say, for us, this Christmas, our son's coming here, and we haven't seen him for 5 months. Mm-hmm. And so you think about that, like, we want to connect with him too. Absolutely. But how are we going to do that with one another during that time period?
Well, fortunately for us, he's flying in for like the 3 days before Christmas.
4 days.
4 days. And then literally he's so funny. Just as a side note, in terms of how funny and entertaining college kids can be, when we were booking his flight to see us in Florida, again, for the first time in 5 months, he's like, yeah, so I'm flying to London. And because he's going to go visit a friend. He's like, I'm flying to London to go visit my friend. So you're going to get me for 4 days. I'll be gone for a week, and then I'm coming back. This is what happens when you have 20. Well, he'll be 22 at that point in time. Yes. Oh my gosh, a 22-year-old kid just living his best life. But coming back to this physical intimacy and looking at this, last week on Instagram stories, we asked the question, do you find it challenging to prioritize physical intimacy during busy times like the holidays? And 64% of you said that you do.
Yeah, I can totally relate. And that is something that I could say, yep, I think many of us feel that disconnect during the holiday season, during that Thanksgiving to Christmas and even to New Year,
Yeah. And that's why we're talking about, because that's not a small number. And if you think about, like, when this episode comes out, there'll be, roughly 6 weeks between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
Okay.
Right. And that can be a long time, a really long time to go without physical intimacy, without that connection, because the quote that I opened this particular episode with, in the absence of touching and being touched, people of all ages can be sickened and grow touch starved. And I want to repeat that because our bodies were designed for touch. Physical touch, specifically physical intimacy between you and your spouse, has a slew of benefits that have been well documented. You can find this across all different kinds of research studies. It reduces depression. It reduces stress. It helps your immune system to function better, which all of you that live in northern states where you're like inside a whole lot more, I'm just going to throw it out there.
And it's cold.
And it's cold. Like, that's the thing. We're still 80 here. God bless Florida.
Jesus.
It lowers your heart rate. It lowers blood pressure. It lowers anxiety. It improves sleep and improves relationship satisfaction.
That's a lot of benefits that you get from physical intimacy.
I look at that list and I'm like, well, why the heck not?
Yeah, I wonder that too.
I mean, as a coach, I know that a lot of it is because a lot of stuff goes on in marriage that doesn't get addressed. Like, I know that you can see that list and you're like, yeah, because there are people right now, Tony, that are listening to this episode going, yeah, but you guys don't know what's going on in my marriage.
Sure.
And you're right. But as a coach, I've got a pretty good idea. And stepping into this season, stepping into these next 6 weeks, this busyness, I'm going to challenge you. Like, to be thinking, what can I do here? It might not be big, but what can I do? And what am I going to choose to do? And if you need ideas, we've got those after this break.
Are you a professional pillow fighter? Or a 9-to-5 low-cost time travel agent? Or maybe real estate sales on Mars is your profession? It doesn't matter. Whatever it is you do, however complex or intricate, Monday.com can help you organize, orchestrate, and make it more efficient. Monday.com is the one centralized platform for everything work-related. And with Monday.com, work is just easier. Monday.com, for whatever you run. Go to Monday.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with a Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
We're back, and we're talking about engaging in physical intimacy during this very, very busy time of the year. And what I want to share with you first are really to get you thinking about what are meaningful touches that your peers, the one family, really enjoy. Because we ask the question, like Tony and I don't make this stuff up. We just ask you guys so that when we share, we're sharing authentically what the one family is talking about, what matters to all of you. And here's what some of the touches were.
Can I just say this real quick?
Yeah.
Before you step into Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, take a moment to literally write down what we're going to say here. Write down 1, 2, maybe 3 ways that your spouse can give you that loving physical intimacy and share that with them. This is a what can I do moment. This isn't saying your spouse has to do it back to you. This is a what can I do moment. And what you can do right now is just take a moment and go, hey, you know what? I'm going to write a little note to my spouse and just say, if we do, or if you can do, or if we can connect, boom, 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 over the next 6 weeks, it would mean the world to me. And just giving you a little action step there, because I think what can easily happen around physical intimacy, and this is something I think Elise and I will do as well, is go, what is it? And this year's going to look different for us, but it's still, what is it that will allow us to feel that connection and that closeness in our physical intimacy over these next 6 weeks? All right, let's give them some ideas.
Now, and I want to say this is not an exhaustive list.
Nope.
You may actually be thinking of something that somebody in the one family didn't say, and that's fine. Put it on your list, right? But some of the comments that we got were hugs from behind. So that's just you just walk up and you throw your arms around your spouse. Holding hands. Sitting close together, right? Think of all the opportunities when you're opening Christmas presents, you just make it a point this year that the two of you sit next together. Or maybe at all the holiday meals, you're like, our goal is that we're always sitting next together.
That's good.
This year, right? Back scratches, laying with my head on his chest, back, shoulder, or foot rubs. Those are easy to do after a night of like Christmas recitals and things like that.
I'm going to just drop something right here.
Oh.
Our Every Intimate Massage Cream.
Does help.
Perfect for that. I'll just drop that here in the episode notes. It might be a nice little stocking stuffer.
Just throwing it out there. Kisses on the forehead. And I actually had the thought as we were starting this episode, what if this year, like fake or real, what if this is the year that you all have a mistletoe in your house and you make it a point once a day that you're going to kiss under the mistletoe? Totally random thought that came into my mind as we were starting the episode. But I'm like, how fun would that be? Right? Like, and hear me out though. Do it in a doorway that you both have to walk through every day. Like, don't just do it in like the random back corner door that nobody uses. Like, actually, like, get on board with this. Massage, holding hands in church. This is another one where you could actually sit next to each other and hold hands. It's like a twofer. Playing with my hair while driving. Cuddles. Spooning before falling asleep.
I'd say naked.
Of course you would. Hand on the back as you walk by. Butt smacks. That was my favorite. That was the actual phrase, butt smacks.
That's a good one. Love it.
That's something that happens in our house. Touching my leg. And again, that's not an exhaustive list because y'all are super creative. But in the interest of, keeping this show at a reasonable amount of time, we're not going to like just give you a list of, 150 different things. But it's thinking through, and I love what Tony said, right? Writing down your 2 or 3 most meaningful. And this may even just be a thing like, hey, honey, I mean, what a great way to set the expectation and to set the two of you up for success before a family shows up, before you start traveling for Thanksgiving, before all of those things, to say, hold up. We got 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
These meaningful touches don't cost you anything except time. They can be done virtually anywhere because this is your physical intimacy and not your sexual intimacy.
Unless it's naked cuddles.
Unless it's naked cuddles, in which case that keep it in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Right. But what if you got intentional around this one pillar and just said, you know what could we do for the next 6 weeks? What would our marriage look like? Like, I want you all to get a little bit excited. What could our marriage look like if instead of just letting the next 6 weeks fly on by, like, whoop, well, we'll just got to see what happens and, hope that we get to January together. What if instead of that, you're like, what if we flex this physical intimacy muscle and said, you know what, we're going to do, 3 reps a day. I'm working out a little bit more. That's why I'm talking reps and muscle.
Here's the thing too. Is it the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday of January?
That has the highest rate of divorces?
It's going to be the second this year.
Why?
Because the first is on a Wednesday, so the first would be the 7th.
So the first Tuesday. Yeah.
So here's the thing, and I think we said this last week or a couple weeks ago. The highest divorce filing day of the year will be for 2025, will be that first Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. That is the highest divorce filing date of the year. You know why? Because many of us are going through this next 6 weeks figuring out, do we want to stay with our spouse or not? We will stay with our spouse through the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year.
One last Christmas.
What could change in your marriage if you were determined and decided to go, how do we connect in our physical intimacy over the next 6 weeks? What could that do? And I'm not saying you're going to get a divorce. I'm not saying you're thinking about getting a divorce. But what could radically change in your life and in your spouse's life because you were determined to just touch your spouse's arm, their leg, cuddle with them, hold hands in church with them, massage their feet for them? We think sometimes these things are so small and insignificant. And yet it could mean the world to your spouse and to you. Mm-hmm. Come with it with an attitude of joy. Come as a servant lover instead of accepting something back in return. What could it do?
Yeah. You get to choose how you're going to engage in physical intimacy in the busy seasons. I don't care if we're talking about Christmas. I don't, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. I don't care if we're talking about end of the school year. I don't care if it's, summer vacations or, start of a new school. It could be a lot of different things, but you get the choice. And I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, well, we can't because we're so busy. And I will tell you the same thing that I told an audience the very, very, very first time that Tony and I ever talked about our marriage. It was the summer after we'd done the 60-day sex challenge. And a woman had asked about, there's all this stuff that we have to do as wives and as mothers.
Specifically the laundry she asked about.
She asked about laundry and dishes, very specifically about laundry and dishes. And it still applies here all these years later. Because, guys, we did that challenge in 2008. This is 2024. 16 years later, I would say the same thing. You will always have the things to do. You will have the Christmas parties. You will have the cookies. You'll have the caroling. You'll have the gifts. You'll have the shopping. You'll have the gatherings. Those things will always show up in some way and form on your calendar. But will you always have your spouse? What happens if instead of worrying about all the stuff, and it's got to get done, like, look, I know, I mean, I've got presents, I'm thinking shopping lists, I'm getting, I mean, it is true what they say
difference
about
between Elisa and I haven't even thought of shopping. I haven't thought of Christmas presents.
That's
I'm like,
because the teenage girl is like, hey, Mom, you want my birthday and my Christmas list? And so, she doesn't do a slideshow anymore. I do just get a shared note. But so I'm thinking about those types of things.
yeah.
And yes, our life has changed dramatically since we moved to Florida. And so our obligations around the holidays look a little different. But the reality is, Tony's 51 and I'm 50. I don't know how old the two of you are. But I know that I only have so many more busy seasons with Tony. Truth. I get to choose.
Like 30.
Well, yeah, I know. But we've already this will be our 30th Christmas together.
It is.
So maybe I get another 30 more. Maybe I get 40. But why not why not choose your spouse and the connection that you have with your spouse over all the busyness? Who knows? You might even find that you have a partner that will help with all of the busyness and all of the things when the two of you feel more connected.
Yeah. We hope this episode encourages you. And for many of you, I mean, it could be one of those that just, we look over real quick and real easily. It's like the quick peck, it's the quick hug, it's the quick handhold. And yet, what will happen if you truly just step into this place and go, I'm going to do something different this holiday season. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, I'm going to do something different when it comes to my physical and our physical intimacy. So with that, we encourage you. What are those three ways that your spouse can physically be intimate with you and you with your spouse? What does that look like? And then put it to the test over the next 6 weeks. And see what happens as you step into 2025 and you look at one another and you go, this is going to be our best year yet. So know that we're praying for you, we're pressing in for you, and we're believing that you will create and have and are creating your extraordinary marriage. You guys have yourselves a fantastic week. We'll catch you next week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.